We all know Albert Einstein was a genius. His theories of relativity, the famous E equals mc, his work on the photoelectric effect that won him the Nobel Prize, he conceptualized ideas most of us could barely imagine. His mind seemed to operate on a different plane, and because of that, a myth was born that his brain must have been physically unique. Einstein himself suspected this curiosity. He specifically requested that his body be cremated after his death to avoid any unusual posthumous attention. But what happened next is a strange tale of obsession, secrecy, and a 40-year quest for answers. This is the bizarre story of Einstein's stolen brain. On April 18, 1955, Albert Einstein died at Princeton Hospital. During the autopsy, the pathologist on duty, Dr. Thomas Harvey, did the unthinkable. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, he secretly removed Einstein's brain and took it home. He wasn't a neuroscientist, he was a pathologist, but he believed this brain held the secret to genius and that it was his duty to science to study it. When the hospital found out, he was fired. But Harvey was persistent. He eventually convinced Einstein's son, Hans Albert, to grant permission for study, under the condition that the research would be published in reputable scientific journals. With that shaky justification, a long, strange journey began for the most famous brain in the world. Dr. Harvey, now without his job, took the brain to Philadelphia. He photographed it meticulously, then dissected it into 240 pieces, preserving them in jars of celluloid. These jars weren't stored in a prestigious lab. They were hidden in Harvey's basement. This obsession took a heavy personal toll. His wife, understandably disturbed by the macabre recollection, constantly threatened to throw it out. The tension contributed to their eventual divorce. Harvey moved to Wichita, Kansas, taking the brain with him in a jar labeled Cider. He worked odd jobs, even in a plastics factory, all while guarding his peculiar treasure. For decades, no real research happened. The brain was essentially in hiding. It wasn't until 1985, 30 years after the theft, that Harvey finally sent fragments to leading neuroscientists, and the first study was published. Over the next 28 years, various studies revealed that Einstein's brain was, in fact, anatomically different in some key ways. First, and perhaps most significant, was his corpus callosum, the thick bundle of nerves that connects the brain's left and right hemispheres. Einstein's was notably larger. Why does this matter? The left hemisphere is often linked to logic, language, and math. The right is linked to spatial reasoning, imagination, and creativity. A larger corpus callosum suggests a superhighway of communication between these two sides. This could explain Einstein's unparalleled ability to visualize complex physical problems, like riding a beam of light, then describe them with precise mathematics. Second, his parietal lobes, associated with mathematical thought and spatial reasoning, showed an unusual pattern. They were 15% wider than average, with a unique structure researchers believe allowed for denser neural connections, facilitating extraordinary computational power. Interestingly, his overall brain weight was less than average, about 12-30 grams versus 1400. Some researchers suggest this meant a more densely packed, efficient neural network. This leads to the big question: was Einstein born with this brain, or did it become this way? The evidence points to a mix of both. As a child, Einstein was not a typical prodigy. He was a late talker, starting only after age 5. He struggled with rote memorization, even finding simple multiplication tables difficult. He preferred to understand logic rather than memorize facts. He failed in subjects that required blind obedience but excelled spectacularly in math and physics. By 14, he had mastered advanced calculus. This suggests his genius wasn't a passive gift. It was forged. From a young age, he constantly exercised his brain with deep, conceptual thinking and relentless questioning, literally reshaping his own neural pathways through intense use. His brain may have had unique potential, but it was his lifelong mission to understand the mind of God that truly built the genius. Today, most of Einstein's brain rests at the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia. Preserved on microscope slides, a scientific curiosity that once traveled in a cider jar under a doctor's bed. His story teaches us that while biology can provide a canvas, it is relentless curiosity and deep thinking that paint the masterpiece of genius. What do you think? Was his brain the source of his genius, or merely the tool that his incredible mind shaped? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating explorations into history, science, and the stories behind the legends. I'm Rana Asif, and I'll see you in the next video.